Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Matt Connarton, and of course, to my right is the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Matt!
Yes, Gary.
You're here again!
I am here again, and so are you.
Some people never learn.
Except before you were over there. Now you're over here.
That was the other show.
That was the other show.
The other
oh,
show,
that's
not
right.
this show.
I probably just confused the hell out of people who only watch this show. And they're like, what does he mean he was over there?
Well, it could mean a lot of things, actually. It's actually probably, if you hadn't said anything, would have been better.
Right.
Because then they would have had to use their imagination.
Right, that's true.
Maybe they thought like I was like, could time travel or something.
Can you?
I'm not talking about it.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Well, our guest today is Mike Gill. And so Mike's doesn't know me that well, so he doesn't know I'm quite out of my mind. But he'll get it. He's a smart guy. He'll figure that out quick. Okay. Anyway, so a couple things before we start talking to Mike. I want to talk about affirmative action. As you know, the United States Supreme Court took the some affirmative action bill, and I think they sent it back to the lower courts and basically punted, which is what they do a lot. And so the Nashua Telegram called me and asked me about last term I had that bill on affirmative action to eliminate it in the New Hampshire college system. Okay.
So in other words, just to clarify, because affirmative action...
We don't clarify things on this show.
Well, no. Well, all right, we'll do the opposite. We'll muddy the water. So
Okay,
is affirmative action in this case meaning quotas?
Yes.
Quotas as far as certain
affirmative
ethnicities?
action means taking action to
affirm,
increase, or to achieve certain goals of integration with different races, religions, or not religions. I don't think, but
no, but
like
different busing,
classes,
like when they used to do
busing.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what affirmative action is. And so I wrote a bill that I've been working. I was a co-sponsor in my first term in 2001, and I've introduced it as a prime sponsor every term that I've been up there since. And so it finally went through last year, and so the National Telegram was in the National Telegram. The story was in, I think, last Friday.
Okay.
And what happened was we passed the bill, and then the state college system said that, well, we don't do affirmative action. Okay, but they have basically an affirmative action director.
Really?
Yeah,
and
they have someone who is in charge of making or trying to get a percentage of the people in the college systems hired and/or students that are of different colors, races, and everything else,
okay.
and to try to increase that percentage.
Oh, okay.
But they don't call it affirmative action, so therefore they don't have to abide by the law.
What do they call the person who's in charge of that? Do you know?
It's something like it's not an affirmative action director, but it's something pretty much like that.
Okay.
See, what they do, affirmative action means you have to hire X number of percentage of people that are of different races. Okay, what they do is, and this is why it's legalistic way to get out of it, is if they have an opening for a professor and they have 20 applicants from New Hampshire, and all of them are just white guys named Chuck who just maybe just came back serving our country, that really doesn't fill their desire to have a more diverse. I think he's in charge of diversity.
Okay.
A more diverse culture at the college. So what they do is they broaden the scope where they advertise for that position until they get somebody who broadens that scope as one of the applicants who is qualified, and then they hire them.
Okay.
Which amounts to exactly the same thing as affirmative action. It's just a different way around it. So I told the reporter that she says they say that what they're doing is not affirmative action. I says they're full of what makes the grass green. She didn't use that in her article, coincidentally. But
chlorophyll? Oh, that's
exactly.
Leaves. I'm sorry.
That's leaves.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, so that was Gary was in the news last week because of that. But it's pretty ridiculous because as long as affirmative action is in place, we are never going to be a society that stops looking at race as long as we have programs perpetuated by the state that encourage it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We're not going
Yeah.
to look at each other as Americans until we stop having a process by which we isolate, colored people or whatever, and say, well, we're going to give you a leg up because why are they giving them a leg up anyway?
Yeah.
The premise is there's an inferiority there that they have to compensate for. I don't think there is. I don't think there's any difference between peoples, and so why should we be
Right.
giving anybody any benefit? If you work hard at your profession, you get so far. And that's it. And
Right.
if there's discrimination where they don't hire you because of race, color, or creed, then absolutely that something should be done. But you shouldn't hire people because they're of their color.
Yeah.
Because that's just reverse racism.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about this stuff, but I think I basically agree. But do you agree that it should be illegal to not hire someone specifically because in other words, the inverse of this, should it be illegal for an employer to not hire someone because of their race or their sexual orientation?
I think they should not be forced to hire, it should be illegal not to not hire somebody because of their race.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can tell the Catholic Archdiocese that they have to hire somebody that's homosexual, because that's contrary to what that's the government telling a faith that they have to accept something that they
Right.
don't accept.
Right.
So in that case, I think that's
really?
different. Yeah. So
They don't accept homosexuality?
who?
The Catholic Church?
I'm just stating that as an
I
example.
was in the seminary for 4 years.
Oh, okay.
I
I understand there's other issues there, but that's fundamentally it. Or any Protestant church, should they be required to hire somebody that is going to openly do things that's completely against what they believe in? I don't think that's necessarily reasonable. What else happened? What else did I want to talk? Oh, I put forth the no.
We have a call. I don't
We
know
have a
if you
call.
wanna-
Sure.
You want to grab this now?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, Barbara. Welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. Oh, Barbara, please turn down your television. We're on a delay.
Okay.
Hi.
What's up?
Hi.
Hi.
I am listening to the conversation, and I wanted to chime in, and I commend the representative for putting in this bill every year that he's been in. It's curious to me, with the recent Supreme Court decisions that have come down regarding marriage and whatnot, that we have a situation here where we have equal rights, which means across the board non-discrimination based on sex, race, etc., and we have these conflicting laws or rules that various state departments or entities are following that are in direct conflict with this. It seems to me that what has happened, and I'm not saying that I agree with everything that has happened in recent weeks with respect to the Supreme Court decisions, but it would seem to me that the quotas of putting in somebody based on their race, their creed, or their sexual orientation over someone who may be more qualified, etc., is in direct conflict with what the Supreme Court is saying. And I don't know if Gary has thought about that at all, but I'm just wondering if there might be an avenue that we need to proceed on this, because plain language of the law has always applied. Our New Hampshire Supreme Court has time and time again stood up and said the plain language of the law is what applies here. So if New Hampshire has equal protection and does not and is blind to race, creed, religion, etc., then it would seem to me that these laws should be purged just based on that. And I'm going to hang up and listen to what you have to say.
Okay, thanks, Barbara.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is I think in this case, I think what would have to happen is because obviously the administration at the college understands and knows what they're doing. They understand what the law says and they're ignoring it. I think what has to happen is it would be really perfect if we had somebody who was applying for a job at the university system from New Hampshire, especially if they were, a returning vet, and they were passed over by somebody of color who was from Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. It would be awesome because he would have standing in court to sue the school. Right now, the Democrats are in charge, so I'm sure they're not going to put any pressure on the university system at all, much less over this issue. So right now, that's kind of not a lot can be done. You have to wait for until the iron's hot before you can strike.
Is that true? What she said? Every year you introduce this bill?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, every time I've been up there, I've introduced this bill.
Okay.
Like I said, at first as a co-sponsor, and then last term as a prime. Every other term as a prime sponsor.
Okay. All right.
But this is the first time it actually went through, and the governor let it slide. He didn't sign it, but he didn't veto it. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Okay.
it was interesting, but it was also some other stuff going on.
Huh.
But anyway, we're going to run out of time because we got a huge story tonight. Mike Gill's here, and you want to introduce yourself as to?
Yes, my name's Mike Gill. I'm the owner of Mortgage Specialists Incorporated in New Hampshire. I've also been in a horse race business and lived in New Hampshire my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
I've got what I want to say is start by saying is what you're going to hear me say seems a little crazy. And that's part
This
of
is a
why.
perfect place to do that.
I was going to say, compared to you, I mean,
I can't get any worse than that.
Yeah, Mike, you're going to be fine. You're in a safe place. I
Well,
guess is what we're
we'll
saying.
see if that's the case. We'll see if I can make it unsafe.
Yeah, okay,
all right.
okay.
But so I took, and I'm only telling you this because they're going to tell you that I'm a bad guy. They're going to turn around and tell you that I'm crazy. I started a mortgage company. I became the largest broker in the country. I was in horse racing and became the world champion of horse racing. I've won more horse races than anybody's lived.
Wow.
I'm not insane, but smart enough to catch these guys.
Okay.
I was the apple of all their eyes. And what I'm telling you now starts by the major law firms in the state of New Hampshire.
Okay.
And a level of corruption that is beyond what people believe is even possible. But I am telling you there's 1,000 pieces, and every piece fits. And what I'm telling you, after this, I think it's as early as next week, I'm sending a narrative to every law enforcement agency in the state of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. I'm giving a narrative to every media outlet in the country and putting it right on the table, and have them explain themselves. I am the large law firms in this state, McLean, Shaheen and Gordon, Divine Millimat, Soloway, these people, and then the Ronnie Wises and the Stephen Tobers, these guys control. Where do you think the judges come from?
The judges come from the big law firms in the state.
Right. Where do you think their loyalties are? To that customer or the place they came from? Now let's say that the lawyer is in the bag. Mm-hmm. Now we got a judge in the bag. What does it say if you catch them all, which I've done? You go to the PCC board. It's a policing of attorneys by other attorneys.
Wait. Let's. The PCC board is the what's the acronym stand for? The
It's similar to the Board of Overseers.
JCC, you mean, right? Judicial
PCC.
Conduct Committee. No.
Right, Professional Conduct Committee.
Oh, the
Okay.
professional for that. That's for the lawyers.
Right, for
The
the lawyers.
JCC is the judges.
Judges.
Okay,
So I
okay.
filed a complaint on the judges, multiple. I filed a complaint with the PCC on the attorneys.
Just on that note, to back up what this gentleman's saying, I filed a bill last term to have the JCC, because we have been, as conservative legislators, been fighting with the judiciary for a lot of years over a lot of things, including Claremont decision, which was in the bag, and it was set up, and one of the lawyers involved was Shaheen's husband and stuff like that. It was a scam, and every time we appealed to the JCC, the Judicial Conduct Committee, it's there a bunch of judges telling you got the fox watching the hen house, you know what I mean? And
I call it the inmates are running the asylum.
Exactly, that's a better analogy. But we have tried back in quite a few years ago. Representative Paul Mirsky introduced legislation to create an independent judicial conduct committee, so it would be independent of the judiciary, and the judiciary said that was unconstitutional. So what the heck did I do last year to try to circumvent that? Oh yeah, I was going to have a constitutional amendment to create a judicial conduct committee, so it couldn't be unconstitutional because it was part of the Constitution.
Yeah. Good luck.
All right. Oh, I'm just saying.
Right.
And this is on completely different issues. Partly on the basis of FRM. I did some other stuff, but I'm just letting you know that that what you're saying is correct. There is a profound quantity of corruption in the system, and they just cover each other's backs a lot.
You turn them in to their friends, to the people who are just as guilty. JCC, PCC. These people act with a degree of confidence, and you can't go anywhere. I've had almost 30 complaints with the PCC. They shut every single one of them down.
Right.
They shut them down all through statutes of limitations. Nobody's saying they're not guilty, and I made outrageous claims. Read them. I filed a Morris Mahoney complaint in Massachusetts. First day it made the front page of the National Law Journal. It's about the corruption, their cover-up of the corruption politically, law firms, and the state of New Hampshire. You didn't read about it in the state of New Hampshire. Now,
No.
why is that? You didn't see it in the newspaper. I'm telling you on camera, Nashua Telegraph is corrupt. They were planning stories against me to try to shut me down.
That and to further back up that statement, if you look on, if you watch enough TV, you will find that any time there's a whistleblower or Snowden,
Edward
for
Snowden,
example,
yeah.
anytime there's a whistleblower, anybody comes out against the system, they will find pictures of that person with a goat in bed.
Or
Wow.
you'll be audited by the IRS, the DRA,
A goat.
Banking Commission, and Labor.
Right.
Everybody at the same time. And guess what? If I give them a release, I'm out on everything. You think about that.
Right,
They
so-
don't give peace. They don't want releases, and they don't give somebody $50 million for being wrong.
Okay. Well, you haven't gone to that. Let's back up a little bit. Okay. So, for those people who don't remember, because it's kind of out of the news right now, this FRM. FRM was a Ponzi scheme by a guy up in what did you say? No, Meredith. And what he would do, and for the purpose of full disclosure, I will tell you that I have one of our interim pastors fell into this because his neighbor kept saying, "Oh, come on, you got to invest. I'm making this kind of money every month." And he said, "No. If it's too good to be true, it can't be true." Every month the guy would say, "Oh, look at I'm making." So he took a huge percentage of his retirement, really nice guy, and invested in FRM. FRM was fundamentally the guy took would bring people in, and he pretended to be a Christian, and his father ran this church up there. So he had the whole aura of honesty, so to speak, confidence, and used that confidence building, and told people that he had this property and that property, and they were investing, and then they would roll this over into so much money, and it was just a big Ponzi scheme because he really didn't own those properties, nor was he developing them, and so when this was known, by the way, for quite a few years before FRM hit the news, and in fact, I heard testimony that Peter Hildreth, if you remember last year, if you've been watching the show for a while, I went through the FRM, some of the FRM hearings, and at the end, to give an example of one of the things I heard at these FRM hearings was the Attorney General came out and said, that it wasn't their fault, that wasn't their responsibility to take care of banking and real estate transactions. And then they turned around 10 minutes later and said if they had more money, they could have done a better job screening this. So they lied because on one hand they're saying they didn't have enough money, on the other hand they said they did everything they were supposed to do. Well, if you did everything you're supposed to do, you don't need more money.
Right.
But if you need more money, you didn't do everything you're supposed to do.
Well, you took around $400,000 from me. You could have invested a little of that in there.
Oh no, that had to go to other things. So then you had Hildreth, who was obviously full of crap. So last term I also introduced a bill of address to have him removed because I couldn't at that point in time didn't have enough information to prove that he was corrupt. But I did have enough information to prove that he was a liability to the state and needed to be stepped down.
Yeah.
And as soon as I introduced that, and people asked me, "You're going to really do this?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So he resigned. So I'm giving you support. So FRM is this Ponzi scheme, and we know that Hildreth's brother was involved. You said his other brother was involved in this too.
Well, what happened was, back in 2008, when the market collapsed, think about it. When did all the Ponzi schemes come to light?
Right about then.
Yeah,
Right then, when the
Bernie
market
Madoff
collapsed.
And everybody,
You got it.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with them. When we get in trouble for disclosures, internal disclosures signed by processor, they gave us the biggest fine. I had a 3-year audit, not a single penny in a fine, zero fraud. I was the pretty girl in the Magic Act. When they were putting mortgage specials in the paper, that's why Nashua Telegraph, they had the PR machine working. Because now I'm default. One, they wipe me out. I don't go after the lawyers. I turn around and I can't fight the banking commission and expose them. What happened?
Well, okay, stop a second. So basically, what he's saying is this is another thing they do is if somebody's attacking them, the best defense is a good offense. So they start attacking him with all these fake things because people only remember what was said in the news. Okay, go back to the picture of the guy with a goat in bed. They'll put that on the front page, and then 2 weeks later or a month later, when it's resolved, they find out that was photoshopped.
Right.
But that's not what people remember. People remember that picture on the front page. That's it.
You're going to remember that.
You're going to remember
That's gonna
that.
be seared in your memory.
Yes.
And what you gotta
Especially
know
if it's,
is-
like, if it's a really nice looking goat.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And
Sorry.
these people are unbelievable. What they're the best at is containment, is the press. Does a tree make a noise if it falls in a forest?
Right.
If no one's there.
Right.
How about this? I'm suing the banking department, no one's hearing it. I'm suing the largest law firms in the state of New Hampshire, no one's hearing about it. Why?
Because they don't want you to hear about it.
Because it's true.
Right.
And if it wasn't true, who's suing me? I'm telling you right now, Nashua Telegraph's corrupt. Divine Millimat's corrupt. Alex Walker told me.
Now, who's Alex Walker?
Alex Walker was at the time my personal attorney and also the president of Divine Millimat.
Okay.
But he was also the puppet master. And he's part of this organization. And what happened was he had told me that the powers that be asked him to prosecute Hildreth. What he told me was, I can't prosecute Hildreth. Hildreth has something dirty on Lynch. I go, what's that? And he says that what Walker told me was that Lynch's attorney put the corporation of the Ponzi scheme together. That's why Hildreth in open court says, if I go down, I'm taking Lynch down with me.
Okay, so fundamentally, we have this Ponzi scheme. Lynch's attorney is part of is the attorney that set this all up.
According to Alex Walker. And that's why Alex Walker couldn't prosecute it. And they went out of town and got a guy named Crump from Massachusetts. Oh, by the way, the same guy years after talked to me about settling this case. What's that? Another $1 billion to one shot.
Right.
So the guy who came in here as the prosecutor is talking to me about settling with the banking department? Another $1 billion, right? Yeah. And what did they do? They don't ask Hildreth the question, was your brothers owners of this Ponzi scheme? What did you do with all the complaints that come in from New Hampshire citizens that they were being robbed?
There was a lot of them, too. There was a lot of complaints. It went to the bank commission, and he just sat on them.
Oh, it just happened to maybe be his brother.
Maybe, yeah.
Right, but no one asked. What they did ask was this. What do? You know what Hildreth said? I play Dungeons & Dragons in my office 7 hours a day. So everybody goes, oh, he's embarrassed. No one asked him what he did with the other hour.
Right.
He
Right,
covered
right.
up a Ponzi scheme at the very least, if not being part of it.
No, it's worse than that, because the fact that he could have been playing whatever all for 7 hours is irrelevant, because he's not alone. He's got an entire department that is paid for to do things like this. So he could have said, well, I don't have time, and given it to anybody else.
Right.
He did not. So he is absolutely full of what makes grass green.
Well, I'll tell you where he.
Chlorophyll.
I'll tell you where he is. He's in a one-bedroom apartment in Kansas City, and I'm going down there with a deposition notice. That's where he is.
He's
as soon
hiding.
as this is done, you better believe he's hiding.
Wow.
They're all hiding.
Yeah.
And why was it? I mean, the guy I turned him into and explained it to the AG's office was a attorney Furlow. Who's the banking commissioner now? The cop, the attorney, Furlow, who did nothing. And I told him about FRM. I told him how they tried to use us as an excuse. They released information in an implode to try to put us out of business. And people not to listen to me. But we have all the facts. When is the cop the banker?
Right.
He is now when you have to have a cover-up and it has to still be quiet. That's when the cop's the banker.
Right.
And what happened to the AG? Oh, yeah, she became senator.
Right. Yep, she was the center, and coincidentally, her computer, they had to format her computer after that. After she was out, very quickly, in fact.
Right. And everything I'm saying I can prove.
Right.
I've got evidence stacked and stacked. I have a series of attorneys who work for me who are always working for them. And what I'm telling you is 100% provable. I'm telling you right now, the state of New Hampshire is in a crisis of corruption.
No, I've seen that in part when a few years ago. I don't know how many years ago because I lose track of time. There was the director of Fish and Game was Wayne Vetter, and he was really abusing his position.
Oh yeah, you've talked about him on the show.
Right.
Yeah, he sounds like a bad guy.
and he was sexually harassing the people in his office. But the reason he was director of Fish and Game is he's very well connected. And so those women went to a lawyer, and I've forgotten specifically which lawyer, so I'm not going to say it. But that one, he's part of the system.
Yeah.
I'm suing 3 past presidents of the Bar Association in the state of New Hampshire. How's that for part of the system?
Exactly. Yeah. So they go to this one lawyer who's part of the system, part of the old boy network. I think they get like $10,000 settlement. He got a pass from the governor and council, and had to take a 3-month hunting vacation. That's why I filed a bill of address, and he ended up having to resign. But I had a lot of people really, really upset with me because he was one of the insiders.
Yeah.
And this is why you got to go to the people. This is why you got to go to the press. You don't beat them in their game. You don't play their game and win. You don't beat them in courtroom. You beat them with the truth. And I'm challenging the FBI, the Justice Department. If there's such a thing, then look at this. Look at it.
Right.
I mean, what's my motivation? Here it is.
Right.
I told the PCC I would give guys releases if they shut them down and took their license, and I wouldn't sue them, and they wouldn't.
Right.
I left everything off the table to be thought of as using this as an excuse to make money. Took it all off the table and said, take their license, do the right thing, and I won't take a dime.
Right.
And they won't.
No, because that's their scam. That's how they gain power, is by. The only way you can have power over people is by having dirt on them.
Well, think what the mob did, right? What did? They own lawyers. They own judges and politicians. Why isn't this organized crime?
It is.
Why isn't it looked at that?
RICO.
This is organized crime
right?
at the highest
RICO.
level, and that's exactly where I'm working to, and that's
Racketeering.
exactly where I'm telling them that I'm going. Because I've got this in Massachusetts, I'm bringing here. If this isn't organized, nothing is. And I'm challenging the Justice Department and the FBI. I'm showing you organized crime at the level of the state that could go to the governor's office, and you do nothing.
Right. Yeah, because I think that falls under the RICO Act.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Because that's how they prosecuted the members of the mob, because you had this system set up where it's all rigged.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, that's what we have.
Absolutely, right from the top to the bottom, all verifiable, all provable. I had the president of the BBO, the chairman, on tape leaving me a message saying that it's corrupt, they're committing malpractice, and you have to go to the federal authorities.
What's the BBO?
It's the Board of Overseas in Massachusetts. It's similar to the PCC in New Hampshire.
Oh,
what it is lawyers that are judged by other lawyers that could suspend their license or take it away.
Okay.
Except for they don't do it.
Right.
Obvious. I mean, it's them. How about this? I had Ronnie Wise get off from the hearing before I had a notice. I had a judgment before I got a notice we were having a hearing. And it was already in the bag. And guess what? Who was person on the panel was someone she works for.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is what we're talking about. It's not hard to see. All you got to do is look.
Right.
We have got to challenge not just the press, but the authorities to turn around and say,
Now, has the union leader done anything with this?
they have done nothing, which means they're complicit.
Right.
Listen, you're either complicit or you turn around and you run in this PR machine of blowing people up. You're either involved or complicit.
Right.
And if you're complicit, by the way, you're involved.
Right.
I mean, 100 feet, 100 yards from me, Divine Millimac, McLean, 10 and 10. We're right here. We're surrounded by this. Where do you see the next big law firm coming from? They own this. Who ran for governor last time? Didn't we have a governor candidate come from Divine Millimat?
Yeah.
You know who was going to be your governor if I didn't sink his ship? Alex Walker was your next governor. That's what he was getting paid by putting that cover-up of the Ponzi scheme together. He was going to be your next governor. But when I put him in here, he had to leave Divine Millimat and work for the Catholic Memorial Hospital, which just happened to be Divine Millimat's one of their biggest clients. Who is the youngest president in the history of Divine Millimat, who just happens to be the president of the largest law firm, leaves? Unless right after I file a lawsuit. You know why? Collateral damage. They want to separate it.
Yeah.
Divine Millimat. They let them go with their biggest customer. Who does that? They sign contracts to not compete, not to give you their biggest.
That's actually absolutely true. In fact, as you know, I'm small potatoes, but even as a tool maker, when I went for a job, you had to sign papers that basically you're not going to share any information and or go to
And lawyers been known to sign a few papers.
Yeah.
Right.
They're pretty
and
good
they
at
watch
it,
their
actually.
biggest thing. Exactly. He was the puppet master. They did. I went after Divine Millimat. I mean, Morris Mahoney, right? They both resigned. I go after the banking committee, the assistant banking committee. They all resigned. I go after Larry Schwartz, the head of the accounting firm, the principal, who falsified my tax returns to make them corrupt to give them leverage. He resigned. Now you tell me why all that happens.
Right.
Wiggins and Norrie goes out of business after 44 years? I'll tell you why. They were the power base. There's $400 million, my understanding, that the federal government gave to the state of New Hampshire for indigent people going through a divorce. My understanding is there's $65 million left. No one knows where the rest of the money went. You know who's in charge of it? John Ross.
Who's John Ross?
Gentleman I'm suing was then the president of Wiggins and Norrie, a cornerstone in the group of corruption here.
Okay.
Cornerstone. He's in charge of it. How about this? It's no trouble. Can we have an accounting of, $365 million? Because I haven't seen anybody get helped.
Right.
Could it be that this money went into just those law firms, that power base that I'm talking about? I'll bet you it did.
Makes sense.
Why don't we look at it?
Right.
Really? And it wasn't their job to protect the homeowners of the state of New Hampshire? Whose job was it? You know what they're afraid of? I'll tell you what they're afraid of. And I'll tell you why it's the level of corruption it is. What if the state of New Hampshire and the people have lost their homes because they weren't on the ball?
Wait, back up. I'll forget this so I don't. What was the money that was supposed to go to indigent what?
Families that couldn't afford attorneys.
Yeah.
Let's find out where that money went.
That was for divorce?
For divorces.
Okay.
Look what they advertised work for.
That was federal money?
Federal money.
How much?
$400 million.
Okay.
So you know what we're asking for is an accountant.
Right. Right.
Because Jesus, you know anybody get any of that money? I sure don't. I spent $5 million for my divorce. Now I'm not saying I'm indigent, but I do know a few people that are. And are they getting any? Because I'm helping them out.
Right.
That's how corrupt this is. And if you don't believe it, shame on you. Shame on you for not looking.
Right.
Right.
Shame on all of you. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm not asking you to believe anybody. I'm saying, you know what? Let's examine the facts. Because if these facts and what I'm telling you is truth, you're living in a state of corruption. It's that simple. You're going to have to pick the right law firm if you're going to want to see your kids. I went 7 years without seeing my daughter. I left my daughter. She was 12 years old. I didn't see her because my wife is mentally ill and can't be left alone, and they know this. They know it. I had a sealing on her on my divorce that I can't tell you now what level of corruption they did.
Right.
It's a year and a half after it's over. They still won't release it because they know it'll prove the level of corruption, and they committed fraud in the court for the last 5 years.
Now, is there anyone helping you with all this? Do you have any allies in all this? Or it sounds like it almost sounds like it's you against the world in a sense.
Well, how about this? Every attorney that I started to get in the beginning was hired by Walker. Walker was corrupt and was hiring me other guys that were corrupt. And I went through all that.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I've got on film one of my last attorneys coming out, Ted Little, coming out with a suitcase of destroying evidence. He resigned the next morning. I had him on camera, security camera, destroying and shredding my evidence.
Wow.
That's what it is. You know who?
Wow.
You know I have my own law firm now.
Right.
I've hired one guy from South Carolina, another woman from Massachusetts. They work for me. I have my own paralegals.
Yeah.
I do my own strategy. And these people that I have are honest. They're not as experienced. They're not as to the level of some of these guys. But I'll take honest.
Right. Honest can get you a lot farther than.
Well, you know
especially in this
what? I'm
situation.
pretty good at strategy.
Right.
And
I'm
I
pretty good at
guarantee you.
strategery, too.
Strategery, yes.
Strategery, yes. I'm strategist.
I'm telling you, we're playing chess. And they'll have no place to go. When I go to the media, their fear is one. When we went to Massachusetts, the National Journal of Law, National, put it on their front cover.
Right.
And that was their biggest fear.
Yeah.
One of the attorneys that I fired, this guy Ted Little, then I had to fire this other guy, Tom McMillan. They were procrastinating about sending out Morris Mahoney. They'd had 12 weeks that was supposed to be out each and every week and didn't because they knew it. They're cutting off the pieces now so they can settle with me.
Right.
I'm trying to do the right thing here. But if I don't get help, and I mean help by law enforcement of the media, where do you go? I'm telling you where I'm going to go.
Right.
I'm not negotiating. I'm telling you if this is true, you got to fix this because this class action suit.
Is this one reason why? Do you believe that? Obviously, you can't know, but do you believe that is one reason that Lynch might have bailed out?
Absolutely,
Okay.
front and center. He couldn't stay on. If what Walker said is true, what would Lynch do?
Right.
Hildreth is gone. What is he going to stay in? You think Hildreth is the only guy who knows the truth?
Right.
He's out. And all you do is have to have one political enemy that knows the story and you're not in.
Right.
And you know who that guy was? Walker was taking advantage of that. Walker was buying his seat as the governor.
Okay.
And there's no settlement that I'll ever take that doesn't say he can't run for political office.
Right. Right. See, it's just
It's interesting, I was just going to say, because people were surprised, I think, generally, that Lynch didn't seek another term.
yeah, because he had it in the bag if he wanted it.
Exactly. Very popular, had a lot of bipartisan support. Yeah, he could have easily had another term.
Everything always makes sense. And when it doesn't, you're looking in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
These guys don't make stupid moves. When you turn around and say, I can't believe he did that. Well, believe it, there's a reason behind
There's always a
everything.
reason, yeah. Follow
I
the
know
money.
why he couldn't do that. Too many people knew the truth.
Huh.
You only have political enemies that know what I know. You're gone.
Yeah.
See you
Right.
later. And who do you think put these?
Well, it's the thing is, it's not just a political enemy. It's like in the case of this is not to the level of what you're talking about. But when I went after Vedder with the bill of address, it wasn't that he may or may not lose his seat. The problem was that if you actually had open hearings as to what he was doing and what he had done, there's a lot of collateral damage. So that's where the issue is. So in other words, if Lynch had stayed in and you had started attacking his attorney, the collateral damage involved, so if he steps down and gets out of the way, then you reduce the collateral damage
The way I
from these
looked
things.
at it, not only reduced the collateral, but I looked at it as expanding the damage to get to the governor's house. So if
Right.
he's still in effect, they may have to look at it more, because if there's evidence of corruption, they'll have to take more of an place of action if he's in place.
Right.
Which is why he's not in place.
Okay. That
It all makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Yeah.
Right.
does.
Why do you think Wilbur goes into the banking department after Hildreth, right? He's there for a year. Furlow told me he was a Boy Scout.
Hey, have you thought of getting? No, I've forgotten his name. I don't know if you remember, Matt. You probably don't, because you. I don't know, but I shouldn't have said that way. That was a stupid thing to say.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I probably don't, Gary.
yes.
Not with that attitude.
Exactly. Anyway, I retract that. So, Bill Gardner, because that was I don't think it was banking commissioner, but he under his office is that the real estate or the,
Are you referring to a gentleman who wrote a book
I don't know.
regarding, I think the name of the book was The Cover-Up? He came from the Treasury. He was afraid
Yeah.
that all the complaints to the banking department was going to get pushed to
Well,
him,
that-
and he
well-
was covering up the Ponzi scheme.
Well, that's because that's what they tried to do. They
Right.
tried to say that it was his responsibility, and so he resigned
Right.
and said, "I'm resigning so that I can speak freely."
Oh.
So he's in your corner.
Well,
I
he was
would
worried
think.
about being a scapegoat. And
Right.
he is working. I have met with him, and it was with people from the FRM.
Of all the people in this thing, and I've heard a lot of the people testify. I knew the banking commissioner was full of baloney. I knew the AG's office was full of baloney. The lawyers and stuff that they sent up there to testify for the AG's. I could tell they were
How
full
about
of.
this? You want more proof? They're voting to try to pay them back, the victims. If the state of New Hampshire and the banking department didn't do anything wrong, why are we paying them back?
Right.
yeah.
Right?
That's an admission of guilt in itself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to, and you know what? I'm saying here, give all their money back. You owe it to them. Bottom line, the fact that you're in a position that you have to means you're guilty.
Right.
You couldn't use money to find it and fight them? Oh, well, now you got to pay all that money back to pay them back.
Right.
Bottom line here, they don't do that unless they are guilty. And that's why I think people from FRM aren't standing up now, aren't coming in. Because you know what? They told them to shut up and we got a deal. We'll get your money back.
Right.
And you know what? They don't even understand part of the pressure that I put them on from this direction is getting them their money back.
Right.
This way here, they could have gotten their money back and make sure nobody else has their money stolen.
Right.
You know, you just can't be a victim and leave it to the point where you allow them to go further on to create more victims.
Right.
Right. Because if they get away with it this time, then what are they going to do to some other group of people next time?
How about
And
every
cover it up.
time?
Right.
Every time, all the time. This is and right now, I was at the right time at the right place, had enough money to put the fight, smart enough to catch them, and I've got them nervous. I'm not telling you I'm going to win in the court of New Hampshire. I'm telling you I'm not. It's all fraud, you know. But if I go to the press, I go to the authorities, and we fight our case in Massachusetts, then maybe.
Can you one avenue would be to start buying advertising time.
Billboards, the whole thing I'm doing. I'm sending out 700 media sources next week. I'm working on it. I am going to get this out there.
Okay.
Have you had any contact with national media?
In horse racing, many times. And the thing with horse racing is say, hey, Mike Gill was a bad guy in horse. Listen, when I left horse racing, right, I told them the corruption in horse racing, guess what? There's a federal investigation, grand jury that are coming out any week saying everything I said was correct.
Really?
Right.
I caught him on it. And I turned around and told that national media, I go, you think these guys are bad? These guys are a bunch of Boy Scouts. And they were race fixing, money laundering, offshore gaming, right? These guys make those guys look like Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Boy Scouts.
You shouldn't really impugn Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I know, right? Why do you hate Boy
Scouts,
Scouts?
yeah.
Jeez.
No, I didn't say they were. I said they thought they were.
Oh, sorry.
all
Yeah,
right,
we
all
don't.
right.
Yeah, we don't hear that.
But next to these jockeys, next to those guys, they are. You know what the problem with these guys are? They're your smartest.
Oh, yeah, the sharp
They're your
dudes.
cleverest.
the smartest people in the room.
Smartest?
That's that's a book, right, or a movie about.
Yeah, but here's you go. Ready? I'll give you the smartest. If you become wealthy, and you did it by never stealing a dime, by helping people along the way, creating jobs,
Yeah.
or you became wealthy by stealing and cheating and corruption, you tell me who's better,
Right.
who's smarter.
Right.
If they were smarter, they'd be legit. And you know why I caught them? Because they're not that smart. I do catch them. But that's how corrupt they are, and that's how connected they are.
Yeah.
Individually, they fail. They're a group because that's what they need. They need I mean,
They need to be able to take shortcuts.
they're bullies.
Ultimately. Yeah.
They're bullies. They're running the school. That's it.
Right.
And it takes some brave students to turn around and say, hey, listen, enough's enough. We got to take this back.
Yeah, well, we're not really brave students as much as we are not that sharp.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I only use a butter knife.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's safer.
Yeah.
But wow, that's amazing. So to recap, fundamentally we had John Lynch's attorney, and we all know. I mean, if
And again, this is from Alex Walker's
Okay.
mouth directly
Okay.
to me.
For people who don't understand this, this is simple. If you take somebody like a Gene Shaheen or a Judd Gregg, look at how much money they were worth before they got into office and what they're worth now. It's real. The math is wicked simple. Okay.
You don't think Shaheen Gordon uses the fact that his wife, the senator? You don't think so? They don't think they have a little political clout?
Okay, so anyway, so that gives you a notion of how much perversion of the system there already is. But so fundamentally, you had the lawyer, Lynch's lawyer, sets up with this guy up in Meredith, this system, this Ponzi scheme. Hildreth, his two brothers get involved. They create all this start scamming all these people, and so Hildreth starts covering up. These people start covering up. The law firm started covering up, or
Right.
helping them cover it up.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot of money here. I mean, there's a
That's where they
boatload
make
of
their
dollars.
money. They make it. You have a problem with the bank, you go to Divine Millimat. You go to Sheehan and Gordon. That's how I knew all these guys.
Right.
I was the apple of their eye. Nobody made more money than I made for 10 years in this state. That's how I got to know everybody.
Yeah.
Except for when I caught them being corrupt. I was expendable. So was mortgage specialists. And so was everybody else.
Well, yeah. Well, you got to have a scapegoat. You have to have somebody to say, "Oh, try to divert attention to."
Right. Who's telling the truth?
It's almost this is a good analogy because I just said it was a good analogy. So therefore
right,
it has
right.
to be a good analogy.
Right. Yes.
It was like the Benghazi thing. You had the Benghazi thing going on, and Obama didn't want to get caught actually not supporting his ambassador in Libya. So they turn around and they blame this poor smuck who made a crappy video and then threw him in jail. It's the same thing. And not to say that you make crappy videos, but
but they do like to try to throw me in jail.
Right. But that's basically what it is. They
Contempt of court. I've got 5.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what they do. They try to find some scapegoat, some way to blame somebody, and you had made a lot of money, and so they were going to just nail you,
Well, they
throw
needed
you under
me
the bus.
because of the Ponzi scheme. They needed me out because of that. They needed me out because I caught the attorneys in the court system and started peeling it back and seeing the judges and seeing the PCC boards and seeing the corruption in the banking mission, the IRS, the DRA. I'm going... And then every attorney that I brought in. Can you imagine a major law firm like Morris Mahoney has 2 lawyers, one of them is a partner, pretend to be mortgage malpractice. By the way, they're not. In fact, guess what they were covering? Insurance. Guess who they were working for? Their number one client was the people we were suing. Divine Millimat's insurer. They had the same insurer.
And they never declared the conflict of interest.
Well, they said there was no conflict.
Okay.
And then they went to file the lawsuits, right? They let everybody get out through statutes of limitations. They file them 3 days late, and guess what? When they go to file them, they say they can't file them. I've got to file them pro se, and guess what? Half of them are a corporation. I can't even represent it. And then you know what? All the other law firms dump a million things of paperwork on me, and I got no counsel.
Yeah.
There's the plan.
Yeah.
We'll bury them. Can you imagine a partner in a major law firm in Boston is not a malpractice attorney working for the insurer we're suing? It's all a scam.
Yeah.
It's all a stage. And they're destroying evidence along the way.
Wow.
The system protects its own.
Well, guess what? All we have to do is this. Ready? FBI, Justice Department, I'll give you the names. You talk to the people. Brian Battersby, right? The state, they put this guy Battersby put this information from the banking department that was exclusive to them on a website to try to close me down. The website was called Implode in 2008 and 9. Except for Brian Battersby. There's 17 in the country. You know how many live in New Hampshire? 1. You know what his profession is? A loan originator. You know who was in trouble with the banking department for operating without a license just before that was posted? Brian Battersby. Then he posted the stuff I gave the banking department, and he takes a walk. He got paid for it. And if you don't believe that one, there's 2 other guys that work for ISoldMyHouse.com. Guess what? They were in trouble with the banking department exactly at the same time for the same reason, and they took a walk. But the morons put the same thing. You tell me 3 individuals print exactly the same thing.
Right.
The dummies, they passed this. They even were so stupid to pass in a form, the banking department, that I only gave them.
Wow.
So they can't even walk away from it. But when I go to sue them in federal court, the judge laughed. In fact, the last 2 federal judges laughed and threatened us about going forwards. I can give you the tape. I can give you the minutes of the hearing.
So you're not saying that maybe they were getting money too?
No, well, I'm saying is,
Getting something.
I'm telling you.
Getting a goat.
How about this?
Oh.
You want to know how big it is? Look it to the level of containment. Governor? Federal judges? I mean, this is the kind of resistance I'm getting. Can you understand the level of force to meet this? Can you imagine what's behind that door?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to open the door.
Yep. And that's we only have like 10 seconds, but I just like to commend you because there's a lot of people who like, for instance, me going up against Wayne Vetter, I got nothing to lose. Okay. The worst case scenario is I was going to lose my seat. They did actually when I first went after I attacked them.
Yeah.
They did their best to make sure I didn't end up. I lost that next election. And it was like, okay, so now I can make my overtime again. Whoopee.
Right.
Right? But you actually have a boatload to lose, and you're still doing it.
Banking Commission runs my license.
Right. So I'm just saying, I commend you for taking a chance because most people, especially if they, after all this stuff started coming out, to shut you up, they offer you $50 million, and you don't take it and you keep the fight. Just thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
Scott. Yeah.
I caught and pick and concede for $10.
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
I've been
Some lasagna.
I grew up
I
fighting.
vote for lasagna.
I grew up fighting bullies.
Yep.
I did. I was just that big guy. I went to a seminary to be a priest to do the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
The thing that I found different, the guys that I used to protect are the guys that are the bullies now.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're the smart guys now.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're taking advantage of everybody else.
Yeah, that's just it. We've done some shows on bullying, and to me, there is no difference between somebody who's physically large and takes advantage of that to get what he wants from other people, as somebody who is intelligent and takes advantage of that to get what he wants from other people. There's no moral difference between a bully on the playground and some.
And here's what's worse. The person that's smart is smart enough to know better, and he should be in a position to help people and use that intelligence to help people rather than steal from them.
Exactly. Hey, we'll see you next week. Thanks again, Mike. And it
Okay.
was Matt, right?
Matt.
Matt. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.